20 days into finding out the truth. We're about 20 days past D-Day. Let me preface this with our situation. We're both active duty Army officers. Due to her finishing school 1 year after me, she was 1 year behind in joining the Army, and the cumulative effect of that is that we haven't cohabitated in almost 2 years due to initial training. This fall was supposed to be the end of that. We're going to be stationed together and actually live together again. We lived together for 2 years before being married, and dated a year before that. I'm currently in Afghanistan until August. I attempted to contact other man's spouse. She found out, confronted me, it all came out. Primarily an emotional affair since they're geographically separated. It was physical before they were separated. Her initial reaction was, "I'm in love with him. I haven't been in love with you in a long time. I want out. There's nothing to work on and nothing to try for. I want a divorce now." She was extremely cold, emotionless, angry and hurtful. My initial reaction was that I loved her and she needed to stop this. We held those positions for about a week. Finally, one night she broke and agreed to marriage counseling. A couple of sweet emails, then I didn't hear anything from her from a couple days. The next thing I got was a long email explaining how I had manipulated her into feeling bad, and I'm a terrible person and she's not happy and she wants out. So, another week goes by. The whole time I'm trying to stay positive and not be angry. I find the Marriage Builder's basic concepts and send them to her. The next time I talk to her, she's telling me how much sense it all makes, how we weren't meeting each other's needs, but now she sees, and she's so sorry. And we talked for about 3 days, very positively, with her assuring me that there would be no more contact with the other man, and she sent a no-contact letter. We both read all of the basic concepts on here and the surviving infidelity articles. She agreed to come live with me when I get back, and she was talking about our future again, how she wants a baby with my eyes. She ordered the Marriage Builder book series for us as well. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, I talked to her this morning and she's again distant, almost emotionless. I asked her how she was feeling, since we've been sharing our feelings through the policy of radical honesty, and she said, "It would probably hurt you to feel." I asked her to tell me anyway, and it was, "I can't do this. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to stop talking to the other man. I want to talk to him about my feelings and I can't just stop. I'm in love with him. This isn't going to work, it's just not. I don't want it to." I was devastated, having a panic attack. I thought we were over the hump, but then it's right back to where we started. I've arranged a sort of long-distance marriage counseling with a marriage counselor here and one where she is. But when I asked her to go, she said she didn't want to. She already has an individual counselor. I told her that the marriage counselor could provide her a lot of support and the supervision and accountability that she, just 2 days ago, admitted she needed to stay out of contact with the other man. She responded with, "Why the hell would I want to make myself accountable for something I don't want to do for something else that's not going to work?" I'm a very, very strong person. I've managed to remain positive through pretty much this entire ordeal. I feel like this situation would be radically different if I could be there to hold her hands and talk to her and support her. I've done my best to try to make the marriage a good place to be, but that's pretty difficult from the other side of the planet. Compared to someone that can talk to her on the same time zone, I'm sure she feels like she's giving up the man she's in love with for a marriage to someone that's not even there. It's also worth noting that the other man is also an active duty Army officer, is 10 years older than us, and has a wife and 3 children. Her initial reaction was to feel extremely threatened by my attempt to contact the other man's wife, and accuse me of threatening her, and her career, etc. I promised her that I had no intention of telling her command. But the more she waffles and goes back and forth between us, and the more I read about exposure, the more I think that it may be the only way forward. She's told me that she's told her family and friends and they support her in getting a divorce. I'm not really sure what she's told them though. It's true that exposing them might be extremely detrimental to their careers, since they're both still in training. I have easy communications with both of their commanders, and with her and my family. My family has no idea about any of this. At the same time, I'm extremely hesitant to burn her so bad, especially after promising not to. I'm just not sure what to do next. She doesn't seem willing to let go of this other man, even though they have no future that I can see together. There's no way he's leaving his wife and kids. He's been in the Army as an NCO for some time, because he's too invested, and he'd lose so much in a divorce. But she doesn't acknowledge that. She just says I don't understand the situation. I've never cheated or lied, and she's the first to say that I'm a great guy that deserves a great person. But she says that's not her. My concern is that being in the Army greatly magnifies the consequences. Not only is this sort of thing frowned upon, it's illegal. Essentially, it would be like if your spouse could be fired from their job if their boss found out they were having an affair. It also hurts so much that she would do all of this while I'm on the other side of the world, and emotionally abandon me. I was totally emotionally out of control from grief initially, and literally had no one to talk to. During that time, she was cold, distant, and totally unemotional. Since then, in her clearer moments, she said repeatedly how much she loves me and wants us to have a future together. I know I can forgive, but I feel like unless she can somehow shake herself out of this fantasy, she's going to wake up in a year or so and realize she divorced someone she loved, that deeply loved her in return. She agreed to NC, wrote the letter to him. That's when things seemed like they were on the upswing a couple days ago. Then this morning it was a total reversal, I assume because of some contact with him. She said she can't cut him out of her life and she doesn't want to. She can't do this. She said the only reason she was thinking we could work things out is because she felt guilty for what she'd done to me, and that she didn't want to stay with me out of guilt. She said she'd been crying for the 3 days that I thought were good days for us, but she feels fine now, as soon as she talks to him again and gives up on our marriage. I simply have no way to stop the contact. I'm not there, she doesn't have me for support, love, supervision, and accountability. WW told me that she'd already told her family and they supported her, which I find hard to believe. I've just told one of her good friends, who was shocked, and I sent her mother an email. I'm getting in contact with my command back in the States for some support in reaching out to the other man and WW's commands. Told her sister too. She's been talking with her sister a lot over the past few months. Her sister is getting married next month. Haven't heard anything back from the mom or sister though. Expecting some fury coming my way from my wife. Well, after telling one of her good friends, her mother, her sister, and her best friend, she called me repeatedly. We finally got a good connection. I got, so loving me as you trying to ruin my life. Did you really think my friends were going to take your side? So, you want to threaten me into staying married? I feel like I'm done talking to you. From now on you can talk to my lawyer. I told her I was doing this because it's the right thing, and because I love her, and that I knew she was going to be mad, but hopefully she'll get over it once the affair is destroyed. She was furious. She just sent an email saying she'll be mailing me divorce papers in Afghanistan. I've drafted the letter to their commanders, and mine. It's one letter for everyone. It outlines how the affair began, how they reacted when confronted, and presents the phone logs as proof. I doubt it's enough proof to get anyone in real trouble. That practically takes sworn statements of admission from the involved parties, but hopefully it will motivate them to seriously counsel these two. Also, I got you go to hell and thanks for making this decision easier for me from my WW. I've never in my life spoken to her like that, or her to me like that. Today, after just a little exposure, she's saying I hope your pop psychology works out for you and I hope your threats make you happy. All I've said is that I intend to destroy this affair. She essentially laughed at me and said I couldn't. But she's still furious. Well, I've already sent messages to her best friend, one of her other friends, her sister, her mother, and soon her commander. Also, soon his commander, and hopefully his wife. The letters should be in the commander's email boxes when they get to work Monday morning. Not too hard to arrange since I'm 12.5 hours ahead of them due to the time zones. Well, I went over my draft letter and the phone records with my supervisor and he said it sounded good, and I had his full support. Blasted it off to all the relevant commanders across the US. I guess they'll see it Monday morning, and then the circus will begin. I shot it off to her OCS company commander as well. I found out there was an investigation back then into their relationship. They denied everything and it was dismissed as rumor. They lied to his face. I figured he deserved to know. She unfriended me on Facebook. I'm not friends with my wife. I'm sure she's not even aware of the crap storm that's in the making at this point. I honestly don't see our marriage recovering from this. The level of anger and threats she's made are like nothing I've ever seen from her. Not to mention that she already seemed to have decided that she wanted a divorce. I'm 25. She turns 24 next month. I've never responded to any of the angry things she said to me from day one. I've stayed positive, told her I understand why she feels the way she does, but I love her and want to work on the marriage. She has painted me as controlling, manipulative, monstrous, etc., but she almost always ended up saying I was a great person. She feels terrible for what she's put me through, and I deserve to be with another great person, not someone like her. I still haven't heard back from any of her friends or family that I sent messages to. I have to wonder what she's told them about the situation. Well, she said she didn't want to talk to me, that I could talk to her lawyer on the phone. Then she sent me a bunch of short nasty emails. Should I assume that she's not done talking then? That she won't just clam up and try to file for divorce? I honestly don't see our marriage recovering from this. The level of anger and threats she's made are like nothing I've ever seen from her. Not to mention that she already seemed to have decided that she wanted a divorce. Even when I get back in 3 months, we don't live at the same place. She's waiting to start her branch school and I'm at my permanent duty station. She's supposed to come to live with me when she's done with school. That's been our plan for 2 years. However, that's certainly not her plan anymore. So, if I go 3 months without hearing from her, and then go back home, then what? Fly out to go talk to her face to face. This situation is unique in that we haven't actually lived together in nearly 2 years, and if we don't manage to band-aid it up at least a little bit between now and, say, October, we probably never will get the chance to live together. And I have no friends where she is to keep an eye on her. She's not accountable to anyone, that's part of the problem. Why would she leave her super happy affair for what must seem like nothing for her? Loneliness. There's no one there to support her or make her stick to NC with the other man. Is it wrong that makes me feel like leftovers or the fallback guy? Once she's rejected by him, then she'll settle for me again. My friends have been reminding me how I used to date 4 different girls 4 nights a week. But when I met my WW, I thought all that was over. She was challenging and different. Turns out she was way more challenging than I ever could have guessed. I don't want to be single again. Like I said, she'll be done with her training in October. So, the plan was for her to come live with me then, permanently. Obviously, once I'm back in the States, I can visit her frequently for August and September until she's able to come live with me. Well, she wrote me again, accusing me of threatening her and being used underhanded sneaky attack mode tactics with her family and friends. She says they have rallied to her support over all of this and encouraged her to file for divorce immediately, and that her mother fears that I might physically harm her. Absolutely ludicrous. I've never been a violent person in any regard. She says I told them a half story and that once they heard what she had to say they would never be on my side. She finished with, "At least you have made this all easier for me, because there is definitely no way we are going to work it out now, and I will be hard put trying to regret not being married to someone who seems to have completely jumped off the deep end of crazy. If there is another half to this story, I simply don't know it." I didn't lie or tell any half-truths to her family or friends. She also sent, "I will send you those t-shirts tomorrow if you still need them. I'm doing this because you are deployed and your parents do not have access to them. Don't take this as some sort of sign that we are all going to be peaky after all of this." I replied with, "Thank you for sending the t-shirts. I'm sorry you feel like me telling the entire truth about what I know is underhanded. I haven't lied about anything and have tried to be fully open and honest with you and everyone else involved, for the sake of our marriage and my own integrity." She replied with, "Like how you think that telling my people a very small portion of our story is telling the whole truth. Like I said, I hope that works out for you. My people know the whole actual truth, not the short version that you tried to demonize me with, and they are all standing behind me. But I do hope that your decision to attack me keeps you warm at night." I'm thinking this the part where I stop replying entirely. I have no way to get the other wife's address. I have her name, I know they're at Fort Sill, so on Post or in Lawton, okay, but I can't get anything better than that. I've even tried some of people search websites where I paid to do a thorough search. The only way I'm going to get a hold of her is if I can find someone at Fort Sill that knows her, or can find her. Her friend that I talked to at length 2 nights ago unfriended me on Facebook without warning or correspondence. This is after we discussed everything and she agreed to talk to my wife to get her side. I'm now seriously wondering what my WW is telling people I've done. Well, I emailed my BDE commander, who is a great guy from what I know of him. He knows me personally, so I'll give him a chance to do what needs to be done as far as representing me. My BN commander will no doubt go nuts that I bypassed him, as he has in the past when he's ignored me for weeks and I've gone above him. I got a response from my BN commander. Apparently, he's been sending emails for a while and I haven't been receiving them. He wants the actual phone bills as evidence. I sent them condensed phone logs that I created. He also said that a sworn statement by me explaining what my wife said about the affair would go far when combined with the phone bills. It seems like they intend to get their ducks in a row before they call anyone onto the carpet. So, the angry emails may take a few days. In the meantime, I've managed to find another LT at Fort Sill that's willing to help me track down the OMW. The BN commander asked for any emails containing admissions, but there are none. She was very careful not to put anything in writing, and in several emails asked me to call her because she wanted to discuss things that she wasn't willing to put in writing. No, it was not a teacher-student relationship, and I feel very, very wary of forwarding her personal attacks against me to my commander. A courageous LT has the evidence and a letter from me to the OMW in hand now. He'll be hand-delivering it to her home later today. The support I've gotten from so many places to pull this together has been amazing. Well, the chains of command have been notified, and the wife will be notified soon. All within 8 hours of each other. Except for exposing all of this when I first discovered it, I don't think the truth gets any more tsunami-like than this. I'm not answering the phone, or replying to emails. I've already recognized that she's been following the WW script for a while. I've even told her that. She knows that. She's read the various MB articles, but that doesn't make her able to see it herself. I still have serious doubts that our marriage will ever recover from the crap that's about to ensue. But I'll be able to walk away with my head held high, knowing I did the right thing, and fought for my marriage until the end. The OMW has contacted me. She has my evidence and has started uncovering her own, including another secret phone number my wife has. I don't think she's said anything to her husband. She just sent me an email saying she's sending the divorce paperwork, and I can sign it or not, but since I'm intent on making this ugly, I probably won't. I didn't reply. It seems like she hasn't figured out what's coming yet, taking that tsunami a while across the Pacific. Yeah, I sent the most recent chain of emails in which I explained that I can't allow her to continue the affair, and say that I'm sorry I waited 3 weeks to come to this conclusion. She comes back saying I'm crazy, she wants a divorce. I'm trying to demonize her to her friends and family, but we know the truth about what happened here. It was about 12 emails exchanged, her being angry, me being calm and loving. Are the claims about this only being part of the story, or a half-truth about what's happened common? Because I feel like if there's another half, I'm not aware of it. Also, I just don't see her forgiving me for betraying her by turning her into her chain of command. Ever. Wow, it looks like it's all starting to impact. It started off with, are you going to ignore me while you do all this crazy stuff? Then accusing me of hacking into email accounts to get the address for the OMW. Then lots of you're just making my life better and you're really making this decision easy. And how ugly do you plan to make this? Then threatened to out me as a homo. Then threatened to sue me for slander, since I have no proof to back any of this up. Said she would never go to counseling with me or ever see me again. And the big finisher, I'll never speak to you again if you go through with this. All my responses were positive and fair. Lots of I'm sorry you feel that way, but hopefully you'll see in time that I only have the best interest of our marriage at heart. I find the threats to out me especially comical given the recent attitudes towards don't ask, don't tell. Sent the whole conversation up to my BN commander. Let no one ever say I wasn't completely honest and open throughout this. I am somewhat concerned that I haven't heard anything back from OMW. I don't think an Army officer in the course of an investigation has the ability to subpoena phone records. They may, however, be able to order the suspect to surrender the phone records. RIF could probably clear that up. Well, a little bit of research seems to suggest that an investigating officer has the weight of the US government behind him, and if the situation points in the direction of phone calls or emails, they can subpoena all of that. I guess you learn something new every day. So, she's going to be forced to choose. A. Try to lie through everything. Get caught in a lie, get a dishonorable discharge. B. Admit to everything. Take your lumps, but probably not a dishonorable discharge. If she is still in training, she is in a lot of trouble, clearance-wise. The only hope she has for keeping her clearance is to break it off with the other man, and go do a self-report to the SSO, Special Security Officer, and tell them the truth about everything. Then she will have to demonstrate her remorse and show what actions she is taking to fix the problem. The only satisfactory action for someone in a training status is to patch things up with her husband. She doesn't even start training for another 2 months. Her class date was that far out. What do you say about the only way for her to make it right is to patch things up with her husband? That doesn't leave me in a very good place. Who wants someone to be forced to be with them? I'll look into reaching his parents more tomorrow. I'm pretty tired now. Also, will they each have a right to legal counsel during the investigation? As in a civilian criminal case, where the suspect can just shut up and not answer any questions at all. Can they just not talk at all? A few months before we were married, after having dated for 2 years, she got the opportunity to study abroad in Germany. She didn't even tell me that initially. She just said she was breaking up with me so she could live her own life. I was shocked and just walked away. Our life plans up to that point had mainly revolved around going to graduate school together and staying in Dallas. I had been feeling restless in school for a while and had sort of fancifully thought of joining the Army. But when she broke up with me, I started really looking into it. I liked what I saw, and I decided to go for it. In the next 3 weeks we saw each other a lot, being neighbors and having a dog together. We started talking. I found out about Germany. We talked about a lot of things, including my decision to join the Army. Over the next month or so we realized that going in separate directions for a few months was no reason to end the best relationship of our lives, and that we wanted to be together forever. We decided to get married, and I would be in basic training and OCS while she was in Germany. This worked out well as I was able to offer her some financial support, as well as pay to keep a luxurious apartment in Dallas with all of our things in it. When she came back from Germany that spring, she had a fabulous place to live and could just go to school without working due to my support. We communicated in letters, emails, and phone calls as often as we could. As she neared graduation, we discussed the various options. She had long planned to go to grad school, but the only ones she wanted to go to were far away from where I would be. So, we decided that the best way for us to be together and stay together would be for her to join the Army. Oh, how little we knew. So off she went to basic training while I was in field artillery school at Fort Sill. She wrote me often and I wrote back as often as I could. Our class average was 72%. It was a tough course. I saw her briefly between her basic training and OCS in Houston when her sister was very ill. I took her mother apartment shopping, just the two of us, and helped out as much as I could. My wife and got along well and really enjoyed each other's company. Then she went to OCS. We still talked for usually an hour a night, but she had her friends that she wanted to hang out with, so she was pretty busy. I was at Fort Polk and knew no one, so I was pretty lonely. I trained for a marathon with our dog every day, usually running 8 miles a day and 16 miles on the weekends. I cooked meals for the dog and myself. My job was essentially nothing and totally unfulfilling. When she found out her branch and her school date, it was nearly 9 months out. We assumed that it wouldn't be a problem to have her come stay with me at Fort Polk while she waited for her school date, as there were commanders willing to take her on, and good, field-relevant work for her to do, and I knew other people that had done the same. When her branch manager told me no way, no how, I was devastated. I was in tears in public, in front of people I worked with. I rallied my strength and started to fight, getting my BN commander and BDE commander involved. But the fight fizzled as the branch manager refused to budge. As a last resort, I wrote my senator back in Texas. She finished OCS very near the top of her class and got her job of choice. I went to the formal and the graduation, meeting all of her friends, including other man, who shook my hand, and OMW, and hanging out with them for a week. In retrospect, she seemed a little different, less talkative, but I didn't really realize it then. Then she came to Fort Polk with me for 2 weeks for recruiting duty. It was essentially 2 weeks off for her. We drove from Fort Benning to Fort Polk in 2 days, the last night pushing her to the limits of her endurance, and her breaking down in tears on the side of the highway screaming at me that she couldn't take any more. I felt terrible. I just assumed she wouldn't have a problem driving if I wasn't having a problem. The next 2 weeks were tense. I assumed it was the friction of not having lived together in a while. I would try to talk and get shut down. We spent some time together, but I was still going to work, so she was on her own for most of the daytime. At night we struggled to watch the same things on TV, and when she would put on something I didn't want to watch, I would get up and go to the other room. There was a pretty big disconnect between us, and she seemed very quick to get very angry over little things. I was really depressed when she left to drive to Fort Huachuca. A few weeks later, I got the first big phone bill that made me do a double take with the amount of phone calls she was making to someone with a Fort Polk phone number. I remember her saying her friend was from Fort Polk, so I knew it was him. I immediately asked her she was talking to him so much when she could be talking to me and texting me. She said that he was just a friend from OCS that helped her out a lot and that they were still keeping in touch. She said she couldn't believe I snooped through the phone bill to see who I was talking to. Didn't I want her to have friends? I felt ashamed and stupid. I've never been a jealous, controlling type of person, so I dismissed all of those thoughts immediately and didn't even consider it again. Soon enough, we were together at Christmas. I had PRKI surgery in San Antonio, and she drove in from Arizona to spend the time with me while I recovered, and drove me back to Dallas to be with my family. We had a great time at Christmas. The pictures turned out great of us around the house. We all had fun even though my eyes hurt, and it was wonderful. The day we were leaving my parents' house to go down to Houston to see her family for New Year's, something happened. She left her phone on the kitchen table and a text message flashed across the screen. From other man, "You make me feel like a love-crazed teenager." I didn't say anything until one night at our hotel room in Houston a couple days later. I asked again about the nature of their relationship and told her that I was not comfortable with it. She said they were just friends, nothing more. I asked if maybe just he felt they were more than friends, or wanted to be. She said no. I was in tears at this point, frustrated at having her lie to my face. I told her I didn't believe her. She attacked back hard, asking how I could not trust her. That's just great. My husband doesn't even trust me. She then said that if their friendship bothered me so much, she would end it. I felt like that was the answer I wanted. I realize now that if I would have just told her that I saw the text message, we might not be in the situation we're in right now. But I felt guilty somehow for seeing it on her phone. I felt like it must have been a misunderstanding, and I didn't want to destroy her faith in me anymore. At this point, she was very angry and began saying that she didn't think that I found her attractive, that we didn't talk enough, that we didn't do things together. I was emotionally and physically exhausted. We both went to sleep. The next day at her parents' house, her phone rang in the other room, and her mother yelled, "It's other man." She looked at me with terror in her eyes and said, "I'm sorry, I told him not to call, I'm so sorry." I didn't understand why she seemed so apologetic. I was like, "It's okay, it's not a big deal." The rest of the time together seemed fine. She drove me back to Fort Polk. I was still pretty much blind, and we hardly talked at all. It seemed like every time I tried to talk, she would just quickly kill the conversation. In retrospect, I wish I had tried harder to get her to open up, because it was 3 hours of uninterrupted us time. She dropped me off. We had slept together before she left. Our bonding life has always been pretty healthy, aside from her issues with feeling that I'm not attracted to her. I was again severely depressed to have her drive away, back to Arizona, not even knowing when I'd see her again. We talked online, with the webcam, and over the phone for at least an hour a night for the next month. I planned to come see her in February. Things seemed good. We were talking a lot, being very loving, and I felt good about everything. I was so excited to go and see her. And then, come the end of March, I'm told, with about 4 days' notice, that I'll be deploying to Afghanistan. My parents drive out from Dallas to get the dog. I'm scrambling to get immunizations and gear issued to me and everything packed. Also, my car starts having problems. I tell my wife as soon as I know, and ask her to see if her commander will give her a 4-day pass to see her husband before he deploys. Her commander comes back and says only a 2-day pass, a regular weekend. We started looking for flights, but due to the isolation of Fort Polk and Fort Huachuca, the only way we could make it happen would be for her to fly all day Saturday and arrive Sunday morning, and then fly out about 6 hours later. The cost was $1,200. I told her I didn't think it was a good idea with everything else going on, and that it was only 6 months. She said, okay, and hung up. I didn't hear from her again for 24 hours. When I did talk to her, she was bawling. I can't believe my husband didn't want to see me before he went off to war. Do you know what it's like to go into the office and tell people that I'm not going to take the pass because my husband doesn't want to see me? I tried to reason with her and tell her that's not how I felt at all, that I desperately wanted to see her, but it just didn't seem possible. She said, even if we could have just seen each other at the airport, it would have been worth it to me. I responded, if you felt that way, then why didn't you say so? She said, how could I argue with a husband who doesn't want to see his wife before he goes off to war? I tried to apologize, explain, everything, but I really feel like she never got over this. Also, I received a phone call from my senator the day before I left for Afghanistan. She was shocked at the travesty of separating us for no reason and just needed us to sign a release of privacy statement so she could start working towards moving my wife to Fort Polk immediately. I explained to her that I appreciated her concern, but I was going to Afghanistan anyway. So off I go to Afghanistan, and we're talking a lot, about an hour a day, exchanging emails, and I think things are good. I'm sending lots of little gifts to her in the mail to let her know I'm thinking about her, like things she saw months ago and mentioned she liked. Then after 2 months here, I see the phone bill with her talking to him again. I hadn't looked at it after she said she wouldn't talk to him anymore. But then I looked back another month and I could see where as soon as I deployed, he started texting and calling. At first, she didn't respond, but after a few days it looks like she gave in. Then there were 4-hour phone calls, tons of text messages, picture messages, etc. I feel like she may have been sincere about cutting off the affair after Christmas, and the phone bill from January says that she did. There was no contact. But the trauma caused by me leaving without seeing her seemed to put her back into the affair. And it's like a mantra in her head now, you didn't want to see me before you left. It's just not true. I desperately wanted to see her before I left. So that's kind of the history of our marriage. We had a very strong foundation of talking, and being best friends, and spending time together. But we've been apart for so long now, I feel like her memories of those good times have faded, and she just sees bad things now. She said she isn't happy and hasn't been happy in a long time. She says she thinks getting married was a mistake. She says that she's been faking climaxes for a while in bed, but that she easily climaxed with the other man. It's such a tragic situation because I feel like if we could have spent a little more time together, even at the point where I confronted her, that this all could have been worked out so much better. Being there in person to hold her hand and look into her eyes. She did the marriage builder stuff for 3 days, and I really thought we were going to make it. But with no one to hold her accountable and without anyone there to support her, she relapsed into the other man. And now I feel like she's going to be so angry and so betrayed over turning her, and that there's no chance of her ever forgiving me. I still really, truly love her, and I could forgive everything she's done. I feel like we're just a few months away from actually living together for years at a time, and being really happy together again, and we're being cheated out of it by the terrible circumstances. Also, I'm pretty sure that if she said she talked to a divorce attorney, she did. She knew all the details of what it would take to get a divorce while I'm here. She specifically said she sent the papers with the waiver I would have to sign in order to waive my right to personal jurisdiction, basically accept that I've been served. So I'm pretty sure she's not bluffing. I knew about her abuse before we were married. Sadly, I never asked her too much about it because it made me so sad and angry and hurt to hear how someone hurt this wonderful woman that I loved. I realize now that we should have talked about it. She's talked about it with other men, and she should have gone to therapy. She's going to therapy now. Her therapist is telling her do whatever makes you happy right now and encouraging her to pursue the affair. But my point is I made a commitment to her, knowing that she had some issues. I truly feel that she's not 100% to blame for what she's done. She was placed in these ridiculous circumstances by our Army circumstances without the ability to cope with it adequately. I feel that she's out of control of her actions and she needs me now more than ever. And I'll be there for her until she makes me go away. Never quit, never surrender. I am far, far more committed to my marriage than I am the Army. If I can save my marriage, I'm out. I don't need this. I've done my part. I've taken my lumps and suffered for my country. Every day there's nice weather here, people try to blow me up. If the Army had been just slightly more accommodating and letting her come to Fort Polk with me, instead of supporting their red tape for the sole purpose of it being red tape, this wouldn't have happened. In other words, there won't be any more deployments. If she comes to Fort Polk, she'll be in my non-deployable unit. This little 40-man deployment will be the last the brigade ever musters before it fades away into nothingness in the next 2 to 3 years. I plan on dragging it out as long as I can until I feel that she's in a position to make rational decisions again. It boggles my mind that when she's screaming at me, she's telling me I'm being crazy and she's perfectly rational. I'm not signing anything here in Afghanistan. When I get any kind of legal paperwork in the mail, I'll take it to the SJA at a nearby camp and have them advise me. I'm protected from any kind of civil actions by the SSCRA, a federal law, until I return from deployment. I think by that point, 3 months from now, she'll have calmed down enough that we can make some decisions. I wrote her back explaining how the affair started, how it progressed, and what's happened since I've confronted her. I told her if she has specific questions that she needs answered so she can know her husband is lying, to ask and I will answer them. Saw my WW withdrew about $4 from her joint account that had been put there for debit card rebates and interest. Such a petty little thing to do. I'm concerned that since it's a joint account, some kind of auto payment or something may hit it, and then I'll be stuck with fees for no reason. When OMW originally contacted me, she said her email was a personal one that her husband doesn't check. To be honest, I have no idea what's going on. Him knowing what I told her won't save him though. I just sent in the other 4 months' worth of phone bills to the investigators, not having looked at them myself since I first got them. The amount of contact between them is staggering, literally thousands of text messages, hundreds of calls. If the investigators are looking for a pattern, I think they'll find one. So, I should be waiting to hear from my WW, right? The last thing she said to me, over instant messenger, was I'll never talk to you again if you go through with this. So, I assume I should wait to hear from her once she's had a while without the other man. My BN commander told me that he doesn't need a sworn statement from me, though I offered. The other BN commanders are in charge of the investigation, and I assume they've appointed investigating officers who will contact me if they want a sworn statement. Also, should I answer the phone if she calls? Also, can I get a good link to a good explanation of Plan A? Just got a response from OMW. Thanks, that's it. I won't be contacting you again. I replied with what you guys recommended above, that telling her was an important step to saving my marriage, and the right thing to do, and that she should never feel like she or I are at fault for any of this. I slept last night from 11 p.m. until 6 a.m. without taking anything to make me sleep. Went to the gym at lunch today to lift weights, and then went running and did ab workouts, pull-ups, push-ups. Jumped in the shower, put on a fresh clean uniform, fixed my hair and had a tasty dinner. Feeling pretty good today. I feel like I have a plan and I'm executing it to the best of my ability, and it's worked pretty well so far, according to you guys. I'm feeling kind of hopeful about my marriage, but I'm very worried about my wife and wish I could talk to her. It feels torturous and wrong knowing that she's probably terrified of what's about to happen, and all alone right now. I feel like I want to hold her and tell her it'll all be okay. But I guess that just makes me a sucker. Do you guys really think that if her whole career in the Army, which she's really enjoyed so far, and was looking forward to the future in the Army, is destroyed in the next few weeks, months, that she's going to get over that? WW shot me an email asking why I had put $100 in her joint account, that she had taken all of her money out of them, and then several days later taken $4 and change out of, as a little angry jab I think. I told her because I didn't want the account to get hit with an automatic payment or small charge and get a bunch of overdraft fees. No response, but it was at the least a civil exchange in which I looked sensible. Nope, never heard back after I explained why I put the money in her account. I don't imagine she's even close to being as angry as she's going to get though. It's only been 4 days since exposure. Wife has a secret cell phone that she's been using to communicate since I confronted her. I don't have access to those records, but I did inform the commands about it and gave them the number for it. Can they obtain the records in the course of their investigation? Also, I'll never speak to you again didn't last very long, as it turns out. I've been thinking, how the heck is she going to explain to the Army why she's filed for divorce now, while I'm deployed overseas? What are the benefits of filing for divorce against my will now, compared with any other time, contrasted with the detraction from my focus on the mission and my combat effectiveness? These are the kinds of things an Army officer should consider. I don't know how she can answer these questions. Shot out on the email. We'll see if I get anything back. Yeah, Friday's a steak and either lobster or crab legs with grilled asparagus. It's not particularly good steak, but the seafood is usually pretty decent. It's enough to make people look forward to it anyway. I set up the cell phone I got my wife at Christmas to get her email through Exchange Push, so she receives emails instantly. Still haven't heard anything. I have no idea what she's doing since her last job ended on the 20th. To be honest, my WW does tend towards selfishness and self-centeredness. Her big problem at OCS was that she wasn't making any friends, and it was really bothering her. She was calling me crying about no one liking her, she said, because she was doing so much better than them. I told her to try to talk about herself less with other people and ask about them, because she tends to domineer conversation and steer them that way, which turns people off. This turned into, great, I tell you what a hard time I'm having and you tell me I'm a jerk. She was in a vulnerable position to be befriended by other men. You know what's really depressing? Talking to people she went to OCS with and having them tell me, yeah, she gave off a bad vibe for a married woman. I stayed far away from her. There were rumors of her. If nothing else, she's confirmed her intent to try to lie her way through everything. So, this is something I should reply to at all. I sent her a teddy bear on April 4th and I'm wondering if she got it. Would it be a bad time to ask? I can just feel myself getting angrier and angrier. You know, I couldn't imagine what this situation is like for most people when they deal with it in person. I can't imagine what it would be like having your spouse say something like that to your face. Just boldly lying, going back on what they've already admitted to. It's maddening. Such a selfish little girl, just worried about herself and how mean the big bad world is to her. How she could paint herself as a victim here and maintain any sort of respect for herself is beyond me. Okay, it's another day, I've calmed down a little bit. I'll wait for tomorrow and send another light little message about my day, which I expect to be ignored at this point. The phone records show 6 months of hours and hours of phone calls and thousands of text messages every month. If they say, we're just really good friends, is that going to fly? WW unfriended my parents on Facebook too. People that have picked her and dropped her off from the airport, got her a new TV for her apartment in AZ for Christmas, and always treated her like the daughter they never had. I can't believe it. We're heading out to do some training this morning, Sunday. I was talking to one of the Air Force LT earlier and he was saying that he was captain of the Air Force Academy chess team. I told him about you and where we went to school. He'd actually heard of some of our friends. Also, just when I think I've got it bad, I see something like this. At least I'm not under attack by a pack of lick-happy lab puppies. Though pretty much the same thing happens when I go out to feed the puppies outside our office. As she wavered between saying she wanted a divorce, our marriage wasn't worth saving. The other man was so wonderful and amazing, her best friend, and she wanted to save our marriage. She wanted to live with me again. She wanted a family with me someday. She loves me so much. Getting my hopes up so high when she would have good days, and then having them smashed back down a day or two later was destroying me. At least this way I'll either save my marriage or I won't. Without the other man, hopefully there won't be any flip-flopping. I'm more expecting no response after her last email of plan on the next time you talk to me at being in front of a lawyer or a judge. Sigh, the waiting is the hardest part. Waiting to see if my old wife comes out all of this mess. I love her so much. It'd be easy to just walk away if I didn't. Well, just got this from my wife in response to the dog pictures. Stop writing me. We are not friends and this is not going to work out for you. Your little plan didn't work, and I am never going to forgive you for what you put me through. If you keep writing me, I will just block your email, and then you won't be able to reach me for the important stuff. I am no longer going to Fort Polk, and I will not see you alone when you come up here, so good luck with all your scheming and planning. I don't want to see pictures of Apollo. He is your dog now, not mine. I am never going to forgive you for what you put me through. Sorry to make your affair so unpleasant for you. I imagine she called her branch manager and threw a fit saying she doesn't want to come to Fort Polk. Like I've said before, not being able to physically be together for all of this is a big deal. If we can't hold the marriage together until I get back, and then get her stationed at Fort Polk, we have no chance. Well, she wrote back to my email from Monday. I like how you got the message to stop putting money in my account but can't understand that I don't want to talk to you or hear from you ever again. Is this something I should respond to? WW emailed me this morning. So, I guess you canceled the computer for sister's wedding without letting anyone know, huh? My reply, no, Fry's canceled it because it was out of stock, so I reordered a new one. Then they wanted me to call them back because I was having it shipped someplace other than the billing address. So, I did, and they said everything was good to go, but then they canceled that one too. So, I ordered one from Best Buy, and it should be to your parents' house sometime this week. I thought that would be okay since they'll be driving out to the wedding a few days beforehand. Here's the tracking number, it should be there on the 13th. Have a good night. Okay, latest draft. I simply don't see how it will be possible for you to get anything from my house until I get back to the States. I've given you no indication that I would destroy your stuff or do anything for the purpose of inconveniencing or hurting you. I've done my best to offer you emotional and financial support from the day this all started, and tried to be the best husband I can be. I've been civil in our conversations and clear in my intentions. I still value you, and I still value our marriage. We made a commitment to each other, and I have no intention of bailing just when we've gotten to the worst part of for better or worse. Nothing has happened that can't be worked through, and other people have made it through much worse. I have no interest in discussing the details of ending our marriage. If you'd like to discuss how to move forward and rebuild our marriage, I'm available to talk anytime. I've been trying to talk to you in regular emails, and I agree that it's going to be hard to stay married if you don't talk back and help to rebuild our marriage. We both know that I have never threatened you with violence or laid a hand on you, and I never would, so I urge you to be honest with yourself and with others in that regard. I have made my chain of command aware that you may accuse me of threatening you. You can reach my BN commander at X. He has been privy to all of our written conversations since this all began, including this one, where you threatened to make accusations in order to get your things, so I wouldn't expect a great deal of sympathy from him when you make outrageous claims without proof. The only thing I have done is lived my life and my marriage in the light. It is what I require from my wife and a fellow officer. Nothing that has been reported or conveyed along the chain of command is done out of spite, but with a deep disappointment and sorrow. I initially tried to reconcile our relationship with love and understanding. But your failure to break off your affair with Frost left me no alternative but to act in any way possible that would end your affair and give our marriage a chance. I am sorry if the path that you left me creates a larger gulf between us, but I was left no choice. I love you and hope that when this situation is resolved that we can focus on reconciling our marriage. As always, I am here for you and will love and support you in any way I can. I wrote back, I haven't done anything wrong. I've just tried to be a good husband and live up to my vows and commitment. Even in the midst of this impossible situation, I've taken the high road at every opportunity. I've made every endeavor to save our marriage and continue to support you in every way I can. I've also tried to be a good son-in-law as best I can. I'm not playing games and I never have. I'm fighting for our marriage by myself at the moment. Go ahead and tell me how I'm a terrible person, all the horrible things I've done. I've been gracious, honest, kind, generous, and forgiving. The fact is that telling people about an affair isn't in the same league as actually having an affair and the lies that accompanied it. You need to face that reality and think about how you would have handled this situation if our roles were reversed. If I had had a 6-month affair during a 2-year marriage, you're still only thinking of yourself, how your career is impacted, and how you're really the victim in all of this. You have to learn to put the people you care about first, whether that's your husband or your soldiers. Update: been really busy and having internet problems. I sent WW a friendly email this morning. She should be getting the dog from my parents on Monday, though she's spending the whole weekend in Dallas. I'm just assuming she's going to fall in with her friends and her ex, the one she was talking on the phone with, while she's there. Had an hour-long chat with WW shortly after I got back. It started off with her asking, "How miserable are you going to make my life?" I explained how all my stuff was ruined, car was broken, etc. She immediately came back with, "I want my stuff appraised too. If you don't have them look at it, then I'll sue you for the damage to my stuff." She said her baby pictures and other valuable photo albums, degrees, diplomas, etc. were there and she really wanted them back. She also said her wedding dress was there and she wanted that back. I held a hard line about trying to do what was best for the marriage, asked her if there was anything that could be done, etc. She told me how I was the worst husband in the universe, listed off everything I've ever done wrong, and explained that we definitely would have worked things out if I hadn't turned her into the army. That even if she ex someone, she would expect her husband not to turn her in. I tried to explain that the difference is that she betrayed me, and I didn't turn her in because I wanted to, but because I thought it was the only way to save our marriage. Her response, "Well, it only made my decision easier." I explained that I had no choice when she plainly chose other men over our marriage and told me she wasn't interested in counseling or anything. She said if I had waited a few days instead of reporting her immediately, she would have changed her mind. She was nasty, venomous, and mean. I didn't accuse her of anything, call her names or anything. Then Sunday, on our 2-year anniversary, a process server showed up to serve me divorce papers. Pretty cold on her part. It hurt. She's been calling twice a day since then. I haven't answered. Today she left a voicemail to the effect of, "I just want to check on our stuff, the appraisals, etc. I know you don't want to talk to me right now, but if you could keep me in the loop through email or something, I would appreciate it. I need to submit a leave form, so I need to know when I can come and get my stuff." I guess after getting served on our anniversary, something inside me just broke. It's like she's not even a human being anymore. Since then, I've been fighting the urge to throw all her things in the dumpster outside my house. I likened her stuff to our marriage via an analogy. No matter how badly I wanted to save our marriage, she could destroy it by herself. And I could make the aftermath painful and expensive for her, but that wouldn't bring the marriage back. Same deal for her things. I talked to a good friend of mine that's also a lawyer and asked him what to do about her stuff. He said, "Tell her it appraised for less than the value of the psychiatric care you're going to need to get over her crap, so she shouldn't worry, you'll take care of it for her." Made me laugh. I'm really liking the idea of never speaking to her again. She's deploying in January, so I really don't think there's much she can do if I trash her things. It also makes it seem kind of petty that she wanted the dog back when she knows she's leaving for a year. Final update. Yeah, I have the dog now. He's doing well. Divorce was final a month ago. I just got around to updating all of that with the Army. What an embarrassing process. This week. Got a letter today from the Army stating she changed her life insurance beneficiary to someone other than me. Other than stuff like that, which happens on occasion, I don't find myself thinking about it very much. My comment: I'm sure you'll look back on this whole situation and see that things probably turned out for the best. You don't have to deal with this crazy WW anymore. You are young, you didn't have any kids or property with her, and you can find a more suitable mate. I'm sure you'll be a lot better off in the long run.